Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in Kansas, in Georgia, in Missouri, in Texas, in Chicago, Illinois, in Arkansas, in California, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Canada, in Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, Zambia, to the United Kingdom, to our brethren in Australia, also in Malaysia, and in Indonesia, and also in Papua New Guinea. And to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad, greetings. May the good Lord bless you, my dear brothers and sisters. This is our special episode number 44, just an hour exposition of the prophecy as the last final warning message just prior to the close of provision. And still, let us focus our attention to the subject in connection with the 11th hour. And it is in absolute importance, brethren, that we will have a complete understanding concerning the subject, the resurrection. I would like to begin our study on 1TG number 11 on page 10. It says 1TG number 11, page 10. Thus the Lord charged his messengers to cry yet, to proclaim again, to continue preaching the additional light, the judgment for the dead, the cleansing of the sanctuary, Daniel 8 verse 14, the purification of it by blotting out from the books, Daniel 7 verse 10, the names of those who are found not eligible to come up in the first resurrection. The resurrection of the holy ones. Revelation 20, verse 5 and 6. We know that resurrection, Revelation 20, verse 5 and 6, is called the first general resurrection. Because there are only two general resurrection. The first general resurrection, which is pertaining to the righteous, and the second general resurrection, which is pertaining to the wicked. Both the wicked and the righteous, there is also a special resurrection. So, we focus first our attention to the resurrection that pertains to the righteous. And we know that the resurrection that pertains to the righteous, it is Daniel 12, verse 2 and 3, and also Ezekiel 37, and then Revelation 20, verse 5 and 6, and 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 and 17. And concerning the resurrected saints, it is divided into two classes. Those who died at the natural death and those who died martyrs. So let us read 2SR on page 195. It says, the number 4 shows that there are 4 classes of saints to be considered in the judgment. So, according to this reading, there are 4 classes of saints to be considered in the judgment. And that is why it is very important to distinctly separate the judgment in the most holy place and the judgment in the holy place. Because in track number 5, page 109, it says, and as the measuring is figurative, 2SR page 109. And as the measuring is figurative of the same work, then it leads to the conclusion that the temple, the altar, and them that worship therein must figuratively represent the 3 classes to be judged. So this reading in track number 5, 109, that there are only 3 classes to be judged, it is pertaining to the judgment or the proceedings in the holy place. But the statement in 2SR 195 that there are 4 classes of saints to be considered in the judgment, that is the judgment or the proceedings in the most holy place. So if you will not distinctly separate the proceedings in the holy place and in the most holy place, you might be confused. Why is it that in track number 5, 109, there are only 3 classes of saints to be judged, whereas in 2SR 195, there are 4 classes So, 2SR 195 is pertaining to the proceedings in the most holy place. So let's read again. And 2SR page 195. The number 4 shows that there are 4 classes of saints to be considered in the judgment. 2 of these classes are to be resurrected, namely those who died naturally and those who were martyred. So, the classification in the proceedings in the most holy place, the 2 classes of the dead saints, the saints to be resurrected, is divided into 2. Those who died in natural death and those who died martyrs. That is the classification of the proceedings in the most holy place. Whereas the proceedings in the holy place, the classification is not the same. The 2 classes of dead saints is categorized by the 2 inanimate objects represented by the temple and the altar. So I would like to read tract number 5, page 109. It says, the temple and the altar, inanimate objects, must characterize 2 classes of inanimate saints, the 2 classes of dead saints. So, although there is similarity between the proceedings in the most holy place and the holy place, that there are only 2 classes of dead saints to undergo the proceedings in the most holy place, as well as in the holy place, there are only 2 classes. But the division is not the same. Now, I would like to show to you an example. This is the example. Most holy place. What are the 2 classes? Natural death and martyred. So these are the 2 classes of saints to be judged in the most holy place. But how about in the holy place? The description of the 2 classes of dead saints. Temple, altar. The temple is composed of those who died in natural death and those who died martyrs. Those who died in natural death and those who died martyrs. Or in other words, the constituent of the temple composed of two classes of dead saints, those who died in natural death and those who died martyrs. The same with the altar. Isaiah 57:1 is pertaining to all of them who died in natural death. But Revelation 14:13, those who will die martyr, although it is still future. This prophetic verse will be fulfilled after the 144,000 are completely sealed, according to the shepherd's rod. So, to repeat again, the proceedings in the most holy place pertaining to the saints who died is divided into two proceedings. First, to those who died in natural death, and then those who died martyr. Whereas in the holy place, it is divided into two classes, but the first one is the temple and second is the altar. But the temple is divided into two classes of dead saints, natural death and martyrs. The same with the altar, natural death and martyrs. So, there is quiet difference between the proceedings in the most holy place and holy place pertaining to the saints who died. So the arrangement in the most holy place is that first, the saints who died that will first undergo the proceedings in the most holy place are those saints who died in natural death. Then after that, those who died martyrs. So that is the arrangement on the most holy place. Whereas in the holy place, the proceedings concerning the saints who died, the very first one to undergo such proceedings are those who died under the symbolization of the temple. Whether natural death or martyrs, their proceedings had been joined together as one. And it is according to the consecutive order of the seals, because the temple are those who died under the first seal, under the second seal, under the third seal, under the fourth seal, and under the fifth seal. So the temple that is from Adam up to 1844. And we know that that is the entire period of the first 5 seals. So let us read again the statement. In track number 5, page 109 and page 110. It says, thus the temple, the first and the largest object, must represent the first and largest body of righteous dead, those from Adam's time to the beginning of the judgment in 1844. So that is the entire period of the first 5 seals represented by the temple. So, if we will be talking or if we will be studying the proceedings in the holy place, there are only 3 classes as stated in track number 5, 109. And the 3 classes were first, temple. So after the proceedings of the entire constituent of the temple is finished, then the constituent of the altar is the next to follow. Then after the entire proceedings that pertains to the altar is finished, then commence the proceedings that pertains to the worshippers. And remember, the great multitude of Revelation 7 verse 9 is not included in the judicial proceedings in the holy place. According to the shepherd's rod, they will no longer be investigated. Where? In the holy place, not in the most holy place. Because in the most holy place, they will be investigated. So let us read again the statement in track number 5, page 110. Track number 5, page 110. And hoping that God would help us and would bless us, because it is very important, brethren. Matthew 20, the parable in Matthew 20 is even more pertaining to the judicial proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, more particularly to the proceedings in the holy place. Because if you will study the entire parable in Matthew 20, the great multitude is not included. Why? Because the parable in Matthew 20 has a close connection to the proceedings in the holy place. And the shepherd's rod connect such subject on Revelation 6, verse 6. Now, I would like to read track number 5, 110. It says, Revelation 11, verse 2. But the court which is without the temple, leave out, and measure it not. For it is given unto the Gentiles. And the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. But why leave out the court? Why not measure it also? For since it is a part of the building, it too must be symbolical of saints. Obviously, because it represents the great multitude which no man could measure, of all nations, and kindreds and peoples and tongues. Revelation 7 verse 9. The last who come from among the Gentiles. The court, in other words, is symbolical of the immeasurable, innumerable harvest of second fruits, brought in after the measurable, numerable harvest of first fruits, the 144,000. It is not measured, meaning investigated. You see, what does it mean by that symbolization that they will no longer to be measured? Meaning, they will no longer to undergo such investigation. Where? In the holy place. What is the investigation in the holy place? Blotting out of names. And it says here, it is not measured, meaning no longer investigated, because it represents those among whom there are no bad to be cast out. For they are gathered in after the cleansing of the heavenly temple. Daniel 8 verse 14. After the judgment of the dead. After the separation of the bad from among the good in the church, as illustrated by the parable of the net. They are those who by name, my people, are called to come out of Babylon, and who with no unclean among them come into the already purified and living church of God. Track number 5, page 110 and page 111. So, the statement is very plain. The constituent of the great multitude will no longer be investigated. Where? In the holy place. What specific place? Second heaven. And that's why we will show to you, brothers and sisters, that let us distinctly separate the holy place in the first heaven and the holy place in the second heaven. If you could not be able to distinctly separate the holy place in the first heaven and the holy place in the second heaven, the result would be confusion, because there are statements and passages in the spirit of prophecy that there are still investigation concerning the great multitude in the holy place. And it seems contradictory to the other statement that they were no longer to be investigated. And that is the reason why the statement in 2SR, page 187, it says, the seven seals and the sanctuary. 2SR 187. The seven seals and the sanctuary. in order to make a proper application of the seven seals, we must have a better understanding of the heavenly sanctuary service, its origin, and the object of its existence as taught by the earthly sanctuary built by Moses. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 5. Then it says, in the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. We have a sister, a Montevideo. She wants to know more completely concerning the holy place in the first heaven and the holy place in the second heaven. But at this time, we will just focus to the subject concerning the 11th hour. And the only reason that I touch this portion is so because it has a close connection in the parable in Matthew 20. And the shepherd's rod says that in order for us to make a proper application of the subject of the seven seals, we must have a better understanding of the heavenly sanctuary service. That is very plain, according to this reading. We must have a better understanding of the heavenly sanctuary service, its origin. So, that service, where it does originate. So let us distinctly separate the proceedings in the holy place and the proceedings in the most holy place. And it says, and the next one, it says, and the object of its existence. Why is it that it is in absolute importance the existence of the holy place in the first heaven? The object of its existence. Although, as I do promise to my beloved sister, we will deal that subject specifically concerning the existence of the holy place in the second heaven, the existence of the holy place in the first heaven, what is the object of its existence. It's very important. Unless we could obtain better understanding concerning about it, according to the shepherd's rod, it utters the impossibility that you could be able to make a proper application of the subject of the seven seals. Now let us go back to our main subject concerning the resurrection. The proceedings in the most holy place, the resurrected saints, or the saints to be resurrected, is divided into two clusters. Those who died in natural death and those who died martyrs. Whereas the proceedings in the holy place, the first one to undergo the proceedings in the holy place are the constituent of the temple, and then the constituent of the altar. Two inanimate objects. But if we will connect our subject to the subject, the resurrection, first, there are only two voices that will resurrect the saints. The voice of God the Father and the voice of the Son of the living God. So it's very important that we need to distinctly separate the resurrection, by which those who will resurrect them is the voice of God the Father, and the resurrection by which the voice that will resurrect them is the voice of the Son of the living God. Now, I would like to read I think Desire of Ages. So Desire of Ages, page 530. So I would like to read the statement. It says, Christ here looks forward to the time of His second coming. A Desire of Ages, page 530. Christ here looks forward to the time of His second coming. Then the righteous dead shall be raised incorruptible, and the living righteous shall be translated to heaven without seeing death. Desire of Ages, page 530. I'm looking to that statement. Says, those who died from Adam, still Desire of Ages. I would like to read Bible commentary. So, I would like to read first in Bible commentary. Find out those who died from Adam. I would like to read here the commentary on 1 Thessalonians. For example, 1 Thessalonians. And also from Abel down to the last saint who died. So let us read Desire of Ages, page 606. And also the statement from Abel. It says, Desire of Ages, page 606. The precious dead from Adam down to the last saint who dies will hear the voice of the Son of God and will come forth from the grave to immortal life. That statement, from Adam down to the last saint who dies, can easily be understood. All the saints who died in natural death, because Adam died in natural death. So the statement in, I think that is in Bible commentary, from Abel. From Abel down to the last saint who died. Let me see. Bible commentary. By BC 1110. It says, in this scene of the resurrection of the Son of God is given a lively image of the glory that will be revealed at the general resurrection of the just at the second appearing of Christ in the clouds of heaven. Then the dead that are in the graves shall hear his voice and come forth to life. And not only the earth, but the heavens themselves shall be shaken. It says, a few graves were opened at the resurrection of Christ, but at his second coming, all the precious dead from righteous Abel to the last saint that dies shall awake to glorious immortal life. Remember, brethren, Abel died first before Adam. The very first saint who died, that is Abel. And Abel represent the martyrs, whereas Moses represent those who died in natural death. But we have the two statements in the spur prophecy. If you will stick to the statement of Desire of Ages 606, it seems Abel will not be resurrected. Right, brothers and sisters? Or the saints who died from Abel. Because it says, from Adam, it took more than 800 years from the death of Abel to the death of Adam. Adam died at the age of 930. Right? But Abel died at the age of 12. the first saint who died. And it represented by the martyrs. Here in Matthew 23, let's read the statement given by Jesus Christ saying, the blood from Abel. Verse 35. Matthew 23 verse 35. Wherefore, verse 35, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zechariah, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. It seems, brothers and sisters, Matthew 23 verse 35 is closely connected to Revelation 11 verse 2. Mention the temple and the altar. Now, here the clear words of Jesus Christ plainly telling us that the very first martyr who died, it is Abel. So why is it that this spur prophecy in Desire of Ages 606, it says from Adam down to the last saint who died? But in Bible commentary 5 BC 1110, it says from Abel down to the last saint who died, indicating that the resurrection of those who died in natural death and the resurrection of those who died martyrs are distinct and separate events. According to the Desire of Ages 606, all who died in natural death, they will be resurrected by the voice of the Son of the living God. Whereas those who died martyrs, they will be resurrected by the voice of God the Father. So to repeat again, there are only two voices that will resurrect the saints. The voice of God the Father and the voice of the Son of the living God. In the first general resurrection, that resurrection is divided into two. The resurrection of those who died in natural death and the resurrection those who died martyrs. The resurrection of those who died martyrs, they will be resurrected by the voice of God the Father. But those who died in natural death, they will be resurrected by the voice of the Son of the living God. According to our reading, Desire of Ages 606 and Bible Commentary, Volume 5, page 1110. Now, let us focus our attention to the special resurrection. We know that there was a special resurrection in 31 AD on the first advent of Jesus Christ. I would like to read 1 SR One SR on page 47 and page 48. It says, Moses, type of resurrection of just. So, the resurrection of Moses, it is the type. And what is the antitype? We know Moses died in natural death. So it points out to the saints who died in natural death. So let us read 1 SR page 47. Moses, upon the Mount of Transfiguration, was a witness to Christ's victory over sin and death. He represented those who shall come forth from the grave at the resurrection of the just. Desire of Ages, page 421. Moses represents the first or general resurrection of Revelation 20, verse 6. It says, Moses represents the first or general resurrection of Revelation 20, verse 6. So that is the representation of Moses. Now, let us go to the next statement. It says, type of spatial resurrection. If Moses represents the general resurrection, who then would represent the mixed or spatial resurrection of Daniel 12 verse 2? Do not forget, brothers and sisters, Moses represents only the general resurrection of those who died in natural death. Because Moses died in natural death. And according to 2SR 195, it says, two of these classes are to be resurrected, namely those who died naturally and those who were martyred. And that's why God is a God of order. He is not the author of confusion. So in order for us to understand the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary, as well as the occurrences on this earth, we need to distinctly separate every term used by inspiration. And the shepherd's rod plainly told us that, according to track 15, on page 76, saying, no, inspiration would not thus confuse its terms and still expect us to comprehend its teachings, to know how to interpret its symbols, and when to expect the actual events to take place. So the shepherd's rod is plainly telling us that if the term, there is no specific and accurate significance, then how could we expect that we could be able to comprehend its teachings if it is mixed up and only lead to confusion. But that is not the way our God works. God is a God of order. 1 Corinthians 14, 33 and 34. And that is why let us distinctly separate those who died in natural death and those who died martyrs. When we study the Sport Prophecy together with the Shepherd publications, there are two personality that had been mentioned in the Sport Prophecy that died in natural death. And that is Moses and Adam. Now, Moses, it says, represents the first or general resurrection of Revelation 20 verse 6. According to 1SR page 47. But how about Adam? So there must be an accurate significance why God used Moses and also Adam. We know Moses was already in the heavenly sanctuary, but Adam was still lying unconscious in his grave. Now, let us continue here in page 47. It says, if Moses represents the general resurrection, who then would represent the mixed or special resurrection of Daniel 12 verse 2? We have the one of Matthew 27 verse 52 and 53. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which sleep arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. The saints who had part in this resurrection were gathered from all ages. But the term all ages, that is pertaining only to the first three. The period of the first three seals. From 4000 BC to 31 AD. And it says, some who perhaps lived at the very time Christ was preaching and were acquainted with him and his work were witnesses to his resurrection. Read early writings, page 184, Desire of Ages, page 786. And for sure, one of those who died on the very day when Jesus Christ was died and also was resurrected during the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the thief by which Jesus Christ told he be with me in the paradise. Right? For example, let us read Matthew 27. Here in Matthew chapter 27, let me see if we find that statement. That Jesus Christ says, "You will be with me in the paradise." I think it is in John. Let me see. I forget that verse. I think it is in John chapter Luke 23 verse 43. Luke 23 verse 43, it says, verse 42, "And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." And he is the specific person mentioned by Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians. Let's read. Chapter 12. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. On verse 2. "I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago. Whether in the body, I cannot tell, or whether out of the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth. Such an one caught up to the third heaven. And I knew such a man," it says, "whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth." So, tomorrow we'll show to you that according to the vision of Apostle Paul, this man had been caught up and brought by Jesus Christ to the third heaven. So, we'll continue the subject tomorrow, brethren, and hoping that the good Lord will bless us and would help us. Let us continue searching and investigating in sincerity and honesty. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.